Hi, and welcome to another edition of Tell Me How You're Mighty. Today's episode is a really tough one, so trigger warning if you've ever been a victim of domestic violence or have been or are going through a custody trial. Our guest today is the mighty survivor, Kaden Sherlock. For years, Kaden was subject to harassment and litigation abuse from Jeff Manusco over visitation of their daughter Kayden, of whom Kaden had custody. Kayden was the offspring of a brief relationship with Manusco, whom she never married, but who tried to control and manipulate her through their daughter. She talks with Sarah and I about her experiences with the family court system, how she was so careful to play by the rules and abide by her custody order, lest he call the cops for her on failure to obey. Yet he was in constant violation of the order and faced zero consequences. Kaden's concerns were brushed off as her being contentious about custody and framed as a mother denying him parental time out of bitterness. It was the classic parental alienation argument. In 2019, a National Family Violence Law Center study found that in cases in which mothers claim abuse by a father and the father then claims alienation, courts are more than twice as likely to disbelieve the mother's claim. In December 2017, Kaden sought and was granted a 3-year protection from abuse order from Manusco. She presented evidence of his mental instability and violence, about how he'd threatened to kill her family members and had once bitten a man's ear off in a bar fight. Despite her protection from abuse order, and despite a custody evaluator who expressed grave concerns about Manusco needing mental health treatment, he was granted unsupervised parenting time with Kayden. In 2018, Manusco beat 7-year-old Kayden to death during his unsupervised custodial time, and then he hung himself, leaving a suicide note directed at Kaden on Kayden's body. This loss would have crushed anyone, but for Kaden Sherlock, it was a catalyst to change the family court system. Her daughter's murder became the namesake for Kayden's Law, or the Keeping Children Safe from Family Violence Act, which passed in the Pennsylvania Senate in December and is now being considered in other states. The law would restrict expert testimony to only those who are appropriately qualified to provide it. 2, limit the use of reunification camps and therapies which cannot be proven to be safe and effective. 3, provide evidence-based ongoing training to judges and court personnel on family violence subject matter. 4, make courts consider evidence of past sexual or physical abuse, including protection orders, arrests, and convictions for domestic violence, sexual violence, or child abuse of the accused parent. In 2022, President Joe Biden reauthorized the Violence Against Women Act and included Kayden's Law as a new provision. This marks the first time in history that the federal government has acknowledged the need for improved child safety measures in the private family court system across the U.S. Before we begin our conversation with Kaden, we're going to play a voicemail message that he left her about a drop-off with Kayden. This recording was played in court.
Hey, you stupid cunt. My mom's not even going to be home at 2 o'clock. Everybody's coming here because she's supposed to be here at 2 o'clock. Per the court order, you stupid cunt. Also, with her phone, it was on yesterday. I was tracking it. It was moving around. You guys went to Party City or something. I have it all on tape. I mean, shit, it's on right now. It's on right now. I'm taking a snapshot. Bing. So, yeah, you miserable cunt, you ought to start playing by the rules, but nobody's going to be home at my mom's. I'll repeat that. Nobody's going to be home at my mom's. I'll repeat that. Everybody's going to be here at 2 o'clock. I'll repeat that. Everybody is going to be here at 2 o'clock. You stupid fucking miserable cunt.
How did the judge expect you to co-parent with that man? And he granted him unsupervised visitation.
It wasn't even like a question of oh, wow, let's think about this. You guys can't co-parent yet. We weren't at that level. Like back when I was going through this, we weren't at like, let's co-parent and get along. You know what I mean? It was like not like where people are kind of working towards those. That's like the main goal now. So I would just be like, there's something wrong here. He couldn't get to me, okay? Like he just couldn't physically get to me, but I think that he would have if he could have. Like if he had the opportunity. I look back now and like maybe 6 years ago, I didn't have like a Ring camera and I didn't have this, but I also look back like, would they have watched my Ring video? Like I don't think they would have because there was times when he was at my door, standing there like doing it, like acting like a fool, and I had no cameras in, and I say like maybe if the cameras were there and I had the Rings for, like, would they have listened? I don't think they would have. Like we had to beg to get those voicemails played in court. Um, but I just took like of the 8 years that he harassed me, I just ripped random voicemails that were just daily occurrences. Like,
So he harassed you for 8 years.
oh my God. And I feel bad because I don't talk about what he did to me on the level that I should, because I am not at the point where I'm willing to accept, and I've gotten a lot of like negative feedback for saying this, but this is how I feel. I refuse to be his victim, and what he did to her is nothing compared to me. So I don't feel like appropriate talking about, well, he strangled me and tried to kill me and he shoved a bottle in my face and he did this and it just never went on and on, because I feel like in the end, like as her mother, like what he did to her doesn't compare what he does to me. And I
Yeah.
refuse to continue to be his victim. And domestic violence survivors get very angry that I won't call myself a victim, but I just don't want to give him another. You took my child. You got away with it. You got to murder her for free. There was no repercussions. But so I'm just not going to label myself as your victim. Yeah, I lived through a domestic, I'll call myself a survivor, but I refuse to be his victim in regards to that. And I get a lot of negative feedback for that, but that's how I strongly feel. And I still won't do it. So you'll see that I don't talk a lot about what he did to me.
Because what I find intriguing is how clever these people are at getting into people's lives and convincing them that they are loving people, that they're the sort of person that you'd want to have a child with, and then they reveal
to be
true
the
self. So where did it start? I mean, obviously when you first met him, he was someone that you loved.
No, I never loved him. I can tell you, and people like also, ding me for this. Like it was a very short relationship, and we all know how the birds and the bees work. I don't have to explain that to you, like how Kayden got here. But he's not someone I would have chosen to continue dating. I think it was like a one or two, like time thing, and I was 29 years old. It wasn't like I was a teen prey. It wasn't like I didn't know how to. It just happens. He would not have been anyone I would have chosen. And actually, to be honest, he was manipulative, he was charming, he was funny, and all the narcissistic personality traits in the beginning. And he did. He manipulated me into like even like dating him, because he's not a guy that is my type that I would have normally dated. Like he's just not. It sounds stupid, but he was short. I'm a taller girl, I like taller guys. Like I would have never really probably dated him, but he was very persistent, consistent. He didn't stop. And I don't know why I even gave in. He was funny. I did remember the only thing that he did is he made me laugh. And that was like the one quality I liked about him. But as like even like the days as the weeks went on, like this was not a long lasting relationship. Yeah. I met him early in the summer of 2009. We were just like friends, like
he's essentially a sperm donor, but then you're connected to the guy because you decide to have your daughter.
Chosen that. And like you can choose your sperm donors these days. I wouldn't have chosen him.
Sure. No way.
And I 100% would have not chosen. And I knew that right white as soon as we were like, it was like, I wouldn't even like it sounds so gross, but I wouldn't even like hook up with him. Like I gave in one time and it just happened. And that's how and it was like, what the hell do I do? Like, this is not someone I want to have a child with. Like I contemplated lots of things. He harassed me every day to have an abortion, to kill her. I hate you. Like it went on and on and on and on. Like to the point where he was causing me like severe stress. Like I never really been put through that manipulation, that type of like harassment, like nonstop. It never stopped. I could change my phone. He would go through email. I could, he couldn't get to me, he'd get to a family member or a friend. And it was not stopping, to the point where it was like causing me like mental anguish, to the point where I was like, it was easier to just give in to what he wanted than to like fight or deal with it.
What age did you have to share custody with him? Did you get full custody? Like how did it play out in the beginning?
The thing that we all know now, and these are things I did not know while I was going through court. I thought the court was always going to protect you. It's like, I'm going to go walk in there and tell these judges what this guy's like. And he's going to be like, oh my God, like Stevie Wonder can see this and do something. And like, courts are set up to protect us. This is how naive I am. I got like a speeding ticket in my life. Like I was always afraid of getting in trouble or going to jail and like following the rules. Like I wasn't a rule breaker, but he knew how to manipulate the system. He had a wealthy father who always got him out of trouble. He was very manipulative. He's a narcissist. They don't give a crap. They do whatever. And he was violent. And he had the violent past from the time he was like born. If you know anything about narcissists, how they actually come about, they're like broken personas from the time they're 3 years old. And in me, being a nurse and a medical professional, thinking if you went to therapy, if you got medication, if you got the help you needed, you could change. And I was dead wrong, literally. You cannot change a narcissist. But I didn't know that. I didn't have a group of advocates with Danielle Pollock and like.
Well, the judge didn't know it either. I mean, you weren't alone. Clearly, family court didn't know he couldn't change.
And the fact that I didn't have the resources that I have now, and that's why another reason why I think I continue to talk, because had I known maybe someone else going through it, because it was like kind of like an embarrassing situation, like people would judge you. Like it's so more frequent now that it's like everybody you know. But I didn't have a Facebook group to go to and talk to. I didn't have a group of advocate women that have been through this that I could be like, hey, this is her, or like even like One's One Battle or any of the. Nothing was around. I sat alone by myself. I was ashamed. I didn't even want to talk to my friends or burden them with that. It was like, what did you do? I look back now and I say, hey, maybe if we had this community like National Safe Parents Organization, we were able to, like, maybe things would have been different. Maybe I would have known what to do. And everyone comes to me for advice. I'm like, what I did not work. As much as I would love to help every single person, I don't know what advice or help to give. Like
you must have. I'm thinking about your pregnancy and how difficult that must have been, where you've got this going on and you've got that weird contradiction where this baby is growing and you feel that love and that nurturing, but you know that also you're linked forever.
Well,
this very abusive man.
My parents for that one, and I'm going to explain why. Because I grew up luckily, and I'm one of. It's a rarity probably. I grew up with an amazing family, very strong, family oriented, loving. Parents are still married 40, 50 years now. I don't know how happy they are. They're grumpy in 80s, but like they're still together, and family was always core. And I felt like, because I had such a wonderful father, he's my best friend. He was my role model. He's the man, he's like the best man on the planet. And my mom always instilled family in us. And I honestly felt like I had to give her a chance of having a father in her life. And I blame my parents for that. Like, and I don't blame them, I'm kidding, but I'm saying, like, had I not had that family value instilled in me, I probably wouldn't have tried as hard. But if I look back now and knew the things that I knew, no, you do not need a father in your life. You can come, like, the kids can be raised by lots of different people of all shapes, sizes, genders, makeups, whatever. They need to be like safe and loved, and that's it. Yeah. And like a lot of people allowed you to believe, like, oh, you're going to be a single mom and you're horrible. Nobody's ever going to want you and this and that. And I did. I was brainwashed to believe that I was going to, I'm going to be in poverty. And like they tell you all these things. Even the courts will tell you that, oh, if you don't have a dad in your life, your kid's going to grow up in poverty. And they still to this day tell you that. And it's because you have one income and you have to pay for everything. That's why you're in poverty. It's not because and
they don't enforce child support.
Right. And I honestly think money killed her. Honestly, I never enforced it. It was a one-time thing done when she was like 11 months old. I tried dropping it millions of times. He just played games. He'd be like, I'll sign the papers, but it was control at that point. I was the defendant in this case. He took me to court. I tried everything. We'd be able to back up. He didn't bother me till Kayden was 5. When he was also probation. He was like, he had bit a man's ear off in a bar fight. Like, now, did I make him do that too? Because I'm being blamed for making him kill Kayden. I didn't know you could make people murder children. I went through the same court case, and I still, at the end of the day, did not end up or think ever still to beat children in the head with dumbbells. Because, like, so everyone's like, well, you pushed him to do it. It was the court case. I said, well, I wasn't the same thing. I went through way worse than he did, and I don't even talk about it. But, like, would you give me a free pass if I went around and beat kids and killed them? Would you be like, oh, well, he pushed her to do it?
So the first few years of Kayden's life, then, until she was 5, he had very little to do.
He was around where he wanted to be. There was nothing. His mother, it was a good grandmother, and she was like, Kayden was like the love of her life. I felt comfortable with Kayden, with his mother, and because he was like mildly, I don't want to say it, special needs, whatever you want to call it. He was like just an idiot. He wasn't really capable of taking care of a child. He didn't know what he was doing, so he relied a lot on his mother. And he actually relied very much on his mother. But I felt okay with him, with his mother, because she's a nurse, she's a loving parent. I knew she was safe there. He would always, every time he did take her, go to his mom's immediately. Like he was not capable of like having a house. Like I have a husband and other children. Like it wasn't the same thing. He lived in Manningham alone in like some like rundown rat trap place. So he took her to his mom's. And it was like sporadic. It was like whenever he felt like it. If he didn't feel like coming on a Friday night because he had something to do, he would just drop plans. And I mean, there was no like formal setting. The thing is that he started, I think someone along the line told him that if you file for custody for 50-50, you don't have to pay child support. Now, the child support, because it was a low amount of money, which I didn't enforce, the courts actually enforced it in Bucks County. And I offered to drop a million times, but he wouldn't sign off on the papers. It was like another control tactic, like saying, like, if I'm paying, I have the right to your child, like to Kayden, right? I was like, well, I need your measly $28 a week. Like, you can just, I never did it. What was it doing for me? He didn't take care of preschool.
$28 a week. That's what he had to pay.
I think no, but I'm saying like some of these orders are.
Oh no, yeah, no, I had one.
I got $600 a month, and I gave it to my dad, who like because I actually had to switch to night shift to accommodate. She never had to worry about her during the week. Like he worked for himself. I'm a nurse. I got to get someone to watch my kid while I went to work for 12 hours, and he owned his company, and he wouldn't do it. So his mom did it for a while, so like she became one, and then there was a lot of issues that went on, and then he ended up in jail for the ear biting thing. And when she was around 1, and that's when I finally we put her in daycare for like a day or two. She ended up in the hospital. Like it was just like a spiraling.
How did your little girl feel about him? How did Kayden feel about him?
So Kayden was a very, very, oh my God. I know people don't like when I say this, but like she was something like not like she was a different child. Like, and I am like always like, why me? Like I know that like who the hell am I to have this like weirdly special phenomenal child that was put on this planet? And she was just different. He was a psychopath like genius. That's the other thing with narcissists, like they're very, very smart. And she had got, not that I'm like smart, but I can't send a link. So like you know what I mean? But he was like geniusly smart. Like he was in like special. So, but you got to think back to a bunch of the serial killers and all the narcissists and sociopaths out there. They usually are very smart geniuses. So she was a very smart child. She could walk and talk when she was 8 months old. Like she was just very advanced. She also, because he was freakily made up genetically of muscles, she was like all muscle. Didn't come from me. The athletic ability. I mean, I'm athletic, but this kid had like rock solid. She could do every sport. She was on a softball team 10U at 7 years old. She played gymnastics. She could do anything. Like her body was just like, and she was just smart. Like she was ahead of her time. She just was a different, like I have 4 other children, and I'll say that she was just different. Like I love my kids, but like, my other children, I just wouldn't like, everybody noticed that there was something like a different spark about her. A lot of times I've been told that people go to mediums and I won't, and I refuse, that they all say the same thing, that she was put here for a purpose. Now, to me as a mom, that makes me really mad. I know I shouldn't be mad about it. I should be like happy to hear that, but it makes me mad because it's like, well, I didn't want her to be that. Like we were fine being regular. I was fine being a regular mom with raising her. Like, why her? And I just get mad that people said that she was put here for that reason, and I don't know how much I believe.
She sounds such a special girl, and it must be lovely to talk about how wonderful she was, because when all you ever hear about is how she died as opposed to how she lived and how incredible she was.
Still remember how awesome she was. She's remembered shockingly by me. That people tell me how much impact she had on her as like a small child. Like she was more than I'll ever be in her 7 years of life. And I wish I was at even the fraction of what that child was, but she was special. I'm telling you, there's something different about her. And I don't say that like, I don't know. Maybe it was her put here. I mean, there was so many weird things that have accompanied around like Kayden's Law and the numbers and like what they mean. And like, and people just said it was it just was meant to be her. And I don't know how much you believe or spiritual you are on that, but sometimes it gets me through thinking, okay, but on the other hand, it's like, well, I feel selfish. Like, no, I want my kid. Like, I don't want her to be the
Well,
one
I wouldn't downplay like how amazing you
saving the
are
world.
because you had to take this tragedy and it's transformed into Kayden's law, and it's now what part of the Violence Against Women Act. I guess President Biden reinstated that, and you got to go to the signing of that. I mean, it's such a trajectory from being so alone and unsupported in family court to like, holy shit! The turnaround of this is it's an amazing trajectory.
Also, like, the women have been doing this for 20 years prior to me. You know what I mean? Like, they've been saying they've been doing it, and it's like, I don't take credit. It's not me. I'm not the brains behind this.
Well, okay, you don't have to take credit for the whole thing, but there are other advocates. But you take a bow, man. You survived it. You survived it, and Kayden lives on through the law.
Kayden, I guess, was the one to do it because she pushed it over the threshold that people have been trying to do for years. And I don't like to say that because people get upset. There's like this whole weird advocacy world that people are in this sometimes for the wrong reason. And I don't want a law named after my daughter. I never wanted that.
No, who would? Right. Exactly.
Like, it happened, and it's like they get mad because of their kid. And I'm like, I don't get involved. I'm like, I don't know why it was her, the one that pushed it over to law. I don't know why it was named Kayden's law. I mean, it was asked, but I don't know why of all the kids that could have been chosen, or it came down to her. Yeah. Was it she the one that pushed? And she did. She pushed it over there. She made it to the UN. Like, I'm in this for one reason. Like, I legit care, right? Like, I don't like taking my picture. I was perfectly fine watching Fixer Upper with my little life. I never wanted to be famous. I can't sing. I don't need to be a pop star. I don't need to be famous. I don't want any of that. I don't want to be recognized. I just kind of want to, I do what I do because in my heart, I owe it to her. And something inside me says I need to do what I need to do, and I'm not going to.
Do you hear from other moms? I mean, do you hear from people that said, "Hey, this helped me"? You being honest about your struggle, like, really put me in a different place.
Every day, or talking to someone last night saying, like, because I suck at responding to emails, and I have 5 emails, and I have 5 kids, well, 4 kids that follow me in the shower. I work full time in an ER has no signals. I can't answer this. I'm at the point where, like, things are starting to kind of like snowball because Utah is passing, Washington is coming out. We did California, we did Colorado. It's starting to finally move.
Thank God.
And I've been getting emails for 6 years now, and I feel so bad that I just can't. There's like secret folders on Facebook that I don't even know I have, and I feel bad. I just can't respond to everybody. And they beg, and I feel awful because they are in such a desperate, like, place that they are saying, help me, please, I'm desperate. And I've been there, being like, I know how they feel. They're at their wits' end. What are we going to do? They're fearful that their kids aren't going to come home. They say to me, I don't want my kid to be the next Kayden.
I wanted to ask you about that because when I was reading your testimony, what really impressed me and really sent me back to days of family court was that it didn't matter what he did. I mean, the guy bit someone's ear off, right? I mean, you couldn't have a worse set of facts.
Imagine if I bit people's ears off in bar fights. Would I have custody of my child?
No, you would not. As a woman, I'm sure you wouldn't. And, people are like, oh, the patriarchy or whatever. But you are perceived as bitter, or that you're vindictive, or that you're... Versus, like, you're a mother who cares about your child. You don't want to send your child into to go be with bar fight guy. It's just basic sense.
I just said there, besides bar fight, besides the aggressiveness, but I mean, that wasn't the only thing. He had a rap sheet. Like, he would put people in comas. Like, he was violent. Like, and he had been violent since the time he was born. Was that my fault too? Did I push him to?
Well, that's my thing. It's like, what did the judge think? Did he think that you were?
We weren't allowed to bring up his history. It was irrelevant, but we had to list it. But you know what they did? They threw it in my face. I got like an underage drink. You know, I was 19 in college, literally. I wasn't even like. I was walking down the street and a cop saw me and a friend have a beer can in her hand. And we were just like, okay, fine. It's still on my record. And they would throw that in my face. And I was like, how does that compare to biting off people's ears in bar fights and putting people in comas? I've never been in a fight in my life. I'm not a violent person. I also went through the same court case that he did. And it was actually 100 times worse because you don't see what people, you can see the transcripts, but you can see all the other evidence and the emails that were sent all over the place. They're out there.
It's just the biting of the ear is enough, isn't it? But you know, there's so much there clearly.
So
but
much that was
you had to send this
that I had to deal with, and I, at the end of the day, still don't think about killing children because of it. Like,
how was that then? You knew that your daughter should not be with this man. You had to send her off with him. I mean, how on earth that must have how do you cope with that? You know, when you're told you have to do something that goes about against every single instinct that you have as a mother, and you have no control over that.
At the time, I was now because of all the crap I've been put through, I was like, I really wouldn't care. Put me in jail. I'll get to top bunk, please. Like, if that's the worst thing that would happen to me. But my biggest fear was losing custody for not following my custody order, because that's what happens a lot. So I was like terrified of that. So I abided by everything. I just did by the book. I did what the order said exactly to a T. And he didn't. He did whatever he wanted. There was no repercussions. And when like he would manipulate something, that he would always claim that I was in contempt of court. Like every day I was in contempt of court, that he and he fired his lawyers. He was emailing my attorney, and he would just say she's in contempt. She didn't follow this. He'd write these manipulative emails, and he would like push. And I made a lot of mistakes, and I know that I do tell people that come to me for advice, like the things that I know that I did wrong. I don't have the magic solution, but I can tell you not what I did and what didn't work. Like, and some of my advice isn't PC, and I look back now, and I've been caught actually saying it, and I don't take it back for a second, but if I look back now, I have the right to defend myself, and I had the right to defend myself and my children. And he would come in, he'd get in my face, he'd try to run me over with cars. I had to get a restraining order against him because he tried to kill everybody in my family.
To me, what this is underscoring is that family court failed you. You went in there, and I did too, believing that the system would protect you. It would make sense, and that we were all equal in the eyes of the court.
In this shitty ass system that I was like, oh, it's like our country, and it's our constitution, and it's our law. And I was like, and it was complete bullshit and $1 billion freaking business that I didn't know about. I just didn't know. I had faith. I followed the rules. I did this. I followed everything that I thought I was supposed to, thinking that they were going to do their jobs like they're supposed to do and protected citizens and its youngest. And they didn't. And I didn't know anything about family court.
Did you ever have to go to any kind of, I don't know, like forced reconciliation with him?
No, I didn't have to go to like pedo camp or like cuckoo camp in the woods, but I did have to go to multiple. I had to go to court-appointed psychologists. I had a full mental health exam that's out there for the whole world to see.
For you, did he have to do that?
Yeah, it was ordered for both of us because I had finally on the stand. Now, mind you, he's pro se and he's questioning me on the stand. My lawyer lets me hang. And he's just like badgering me. And finally, at the point where like, I'm a very calm person until like you poke me enough, I'm going to eventually like, maybe like curse is my usually like my downfall, or like snap, like yell. And on the stand, I finally said like, like something like that. And they all right enough. And we had recess. And I remember the sheriff and my attorney chased me in the bathroom. I was like crying hysterically. I'd say, let him badger me on the stand for an hour. Nobody said a word. No objection. No, nothing from my attorney. Like, where were you, lady? You let me sit there and let him freaking say whatever he wanted to me. And I had to just sit there. And finally, I'm like, he would get me so mad. The thing that got me the most mad in all this, and it's still like a thing that I still to this day have a huge problem with it. Being accused of something that I didn't do makes me like nutty. Like, and when I know it's the truth, when I can be like, here's a PowerPoint presentation of all of the evidence here, but yet I'm still being blamed. It's like he'd be like, I'm Batman, and I was like, well, I can prove that you're not, and like, let's go over the record. And he'd just be like, I'm Batman, and they would just believe him. And it'd be like, what? Like, you know, it was just so hard to get around. And he would accuse me of just these manipulative things like that. I was like taking his child from him to get back at him. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm the defendant in this case. You dragged me in here. Like, we had lawyers prior to going to court, and we had agreements. And then,
did anybody ever tell you this was litigation abuse? Did anybody ever mention litigation abuse?
I didn't know that was a thing back then. But I do. Yeah, I look back now and I said he used the courts against me, but we had lawyers I was forced into an agreement, and I remember And this is the one thing I said to my first, I had two attorneys, a male and a female. The male told me to get a gun, and I was like, "You're crazy," and he wouldn't listen to a word I said. He's like, "You can't just take his rights away because he's an asshole to you." I'm like, "Oh my God, it has nothing to do with me. The man's nutty. Like I'm as a medical, like he needs a CAT scan. I think he's been smacked in the head too many times. Like there's something wrong. He's been wrong. There's been something wrong with him since the day he was born. Like he punched his gym teacher in his face. Like he was always fighting. And then he would drink. Like he was just like not normal. And I, the dumb person that I am, if he got a CAT scan, maybe got some medication and some therapy, he could probably be a better human. But there's no fixing them.
So obviously, you didn't want to be proved right in this way, and you were proved right in the most dramatic, horrific way.
It was documented by
you must remember forever. You must remember forever that the time that she went off with him for the last time, and you never saw her alive again. People hadn't listened to you, and you paid the ultimate price.
And the reason that I sent her that day, and people give me a lot of crap, like why would you send her? So our final order was written in May, and he always did what he wanted. Like if the court order said bring her home by 6, he'd come home at 8. I'd be pacing outside, like don't call the police. Don't call. The police were over at my house every single day investigating me. He would call and say that I kidnapped her. I'd always have to be like, come on in, officer. I mean, and every time that I ever call and say, like the one time I called saying my daughter hasn't been returned home, they hung up on me, and that was the night that she was killed. So they completely blew me off, but they would send the cops to my house multiple times listening to him. He would manipulate them saying, I'm kidnapping him, I'm bullying him. I'm like, I'm not, I never held him from her. She always went. He wouldn't show up when he showed up. He would do whatever the hell he wanted. He wasn't supposed to cross state lines. He did whatever he wanted. There were no repercussions whatsoever. He never once got in trouble for not following the court order. So I look back now, it's like I was so terrified of being put in jail because he would tell me I was in contempt every day that I did what I was supposed to do. And then I'd be like begging my lawyer, he's not listening, he's spiraling, he's this. And she's like, the last email I said to her was, it was like July. It was like 3 weeks before she was killed. I said because he had told Kayden that like he hated her for not answering her little stupid phone at the time that he wanted. He would call all day long, even though there was a court order saying and he would do that. He's like, I pay for the phone. I can do whatever I want. I mean, that you listen to that voicemail and he's going, I see the phone's on. I'm pinging it. You're at Party City or whatever. It was her cell phone, and he would track us. And that was another way of like manipulation. It was like, talk to him. I never took the phone from her. I never said you can't talk to your dad. I never held her from him.
Right.
The cops dragged her out of my house one time when I was like, he showed up whenever he wanted, screaming, pretending to call his lawyers. He calls the cops, and they said, ma'am, we have to follow the judge's orders. But when I asked for them to do something, they just completely blew me off. But they took my child out of the house, which is, you're not allowed to do that. She was like, I was like, she's getting dressed. I'm not holding her from like
he was never. I mean, I don't know how this. I mean, it ended in the worst tragedy, but the man could never have been right. I don't know, other than getting like full parental rights and just cutting him out, which I wish the court would have done.
He did not want her. That's the thing. It was all control. So for 5 years, Kaden lived with me. He never had to worry about, like, normal dads would be like, okay, well, how's your child going to get to school or preschool, or who's going to watch her while we work? Well, it wouldn't matter who was going to watch her when I work. He had nothing to do with that. He didn't pay for daycare or any of that, as he gave me, my $600. That was to cover all this. And I mean, she played every sport. I never asked him for a dime. I never asked him for anything. I actually never even, like, he would pay whenever and he would never get in trouble. And then when he would finally like not pay a couple of months, the court would send him a letter saying he was in arrears and that he was this, and then he would freak out and he'd blame me. He threatened the domestic relations office so badly that they were like afraid of him. If he didn't get what he wanted from these personnel, because he was very like CSI and talk. He was very smart. He talked smart. He would always threaten to sue everybody. So they were actually afraid. So he threatened to sue the police. He threatened to sue them. He threatened to sue the school district. That's why I believe they didn't tell me anything that was going on with them. It was like this huge thing. We show up in court. There's a file this big from the school banning him up from the property, and they never even told me about it. That man was banned from an elementary school for harassing a kid.
But he could have unsupervised visitation with your daughter.
He said multiple times and telling him to stay away, and I was never even notified of this.
Yeah.
A certified letter got sent out from the school district stating that he was to cease and desist all contact He was harassing the lawyers. You couldn't mention this to me. That's why I tried to sue them, saying you did not to mention you guys are freaking mandatory reporters. You think that it was okay that he was harassing your teacher so bad he wasn't allowed on property, but it was okay for her to go with him. You felt that way. You felt that he was so unsafe to be on your property towards adults that you didn't call CPS or report this to anybody.
Well, no wonder this was the straw that broke the camel's back and got Kayden's law. I mean, the whole situation is so completely egregious. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about when you have to dredge all this stuff up and talk about it again, and I noticed in the discourse, is that you've pushed back against your daughter's murder being attributed to a contentious custody battle.
Well, they coined that. I know.
Yeah. Well, right. Exactly. And to me, that seems to imply some blame shifting, that it was the custody battle, and it takes two to have a custody battle that killed your daughter versus you had like an unhinged sociopath that killed.
Documented from the court-appointed psychologist that we had to get mental health evaluations from. It's in my court order. It's documenting that he's suicidal, narcissistic, antisocial person. The guy that they forced us to go to because they probably played golf together, like my insurance would have paid 100% for my unnecessary mental health exam, but I was forced to go to Dr. Weinstein. We both were. It was like $6,000 or something I had to pay within like a couple weeks. Like I had like court on February 28th that had to be done by April 13th. Well, I'm a mom and like I have kids that I need to feed and we have rent and bills, but all of a sudden I gotta be like, do I pay my unnecessary mental health exam from Dr. Weinstein because he won't take my Aetna insurance, which would have covered it, or do I do this because I fear going to jail and losing custody of my child? So yeah, obviously I did it. And you want to know what my mental health examination said? Which they compared to him in the media, saying that we both had problems. Mine, what do you think mine said?
Loving mother who doesn't want to send child to sociopath.
What was my diagnosis from this psychiatrist? I had anxiety due to said situation, and I was told to seek out help from my primary care physician to get something to help me sleep. That was his recommendation. And I also have a weird normal fear of spiders and snakes and stuff, but whatever.
Well, no, you have a fear of a very frightening guy.
It's all my files are out there if you ever want to read
But
it.
did you feel like that was they were trying to come up with something, like it was both sides-ism?
I feel like Dr. Weinstein did his job appropriately, and then here's the real kick, and this is where the laws need to change. We went through all that. He went through a thorough like computer testing, analytical thing. He was spot on about him. He was spot on about me. He was very good. But here's the kick. Judge Trauger didn't even have to read that report. He had to there was nothing mandating that judges take those reports, have to use them, have to utilize them, have to follow them, and he could wipe his butt with it for all he cared. He didn't even have to read it, and I guarantee you probably didn't, because they noted in that he was suicidal. Now, I work at an ER. If you come in and you're suicidal, you're not leaving. So you're like literally screened by an ER medical doctor and then crisis, okay? And if you try to leave, we're going to strap you down with restraints, and because you're harm to yourself. But you note in a court order that the man is suicidal, he's saying it, and it's noted by a judge, and you just say, hey, here's your kid, have a nice day. And then the exam also said that he had narcissistic, antisocial, like scary personality traits, and the recommendation for him was to receive mental health, be followed by a mental health professional. Now, what does the media say about me? What does the American Court of Pennsylvania? This is what the women patriarchy, archery, and man shit that comes into part. Mom had anxiety. Dad was an antisocial, narcissistic, ear-biting freak that freaking had severe mental illness and was suicidal and required severe mental health treatment, and it was recommended. What do you think they say when they combine us in these reports that they were saying about me on TV? Well, the judge noted they both had problems. How does that compare? That's what they do to women. Like they're like, I had anxiety, and
because of him.
Yeah,
well, it would have been unusual if you didn't. Yeah, it would be unusual not to have anxiety, given what you were going through.
Literally due to said situation, and
it's been a long fight for you. You know, you've highlighted this, you've spoken out about it. Do you think things have now changed? Are we? Obviously, Kayden should still be here, but will her life and her very sad death make a difference in the future?
So when I first started doing this, I said, I went, I was always so fearful of public speaking. It was like I would call out in high school if I had to speak. I've never spoken. I don't do that. It's not my thing. My voice is annoying. It's monotone. I don't want to listen to it. I can tell you that. I don't listen to myself on TV. It makes me like cringe. But when I got up to speak at her eulogy, it was the first time I've ever publicly spoken. And I just remember my husband's it's on video, it's on YouTube if you're ever bored and want to watch it one day. Very great. My husband had a very great eulogy. He went first. And I had said at her funeral, I don't really want everybody up there talking. Like, I just want it to be Brian, and maybe I'll talk. I didn't write anything down. I was like, I don't think I have the courage to do it. I don't speak publicly. I'm terrified of it. But when you have something to say, you just, something inside, you just make, and I had something to say. And I just got up there and I said, um, you know, had one person listen to me, one person would have taken me seriously or listened to me or not said that I was crazy. Like, do you understand how much difference one person can make? And I just started yapping and I just started, wouldn't be quiet. I just kept saying, y'all did something wrong. Because, like, as a medical professional, if you kill people in the hospital, we stop and we say, stop. Someone died because of this, because the nurses had fake nails on in the NICU, and we figure out why that happened and make sure it never happens again. And we know why this happened. And it's like literally black and white why this happened. This was preventable. You could, like, it's science. You could say these are the lethalities to this case. Kayden's case, one of like 90 or 100 cases that were like a yellow case or like clearly marked on the CG, on the database, saying like these things were all there. They were told, they were reported, and it's still, this is the outcome. That was frustrating to me. And all I ever said was, something went wrong here. Let's take a look at where it went wrong and fix it so it never happens again. So mom never has to bury her 7-year-old child. Okay. That's all I ever said. So I don't know how we're going to do that, but your law is stupid. I actually was backing up to the only other thing that I ever told my one lawyer was, he's like, you can't just take his rights away because he's a dad. I said, I'm not. I said, he's like, it's the law. It's the law. It's the law. And I finally said to him, well, the law is stupid. And if I have to, I will get a clipboard and a pen, and I will go door to door with a petition, and I will change your stupid little law because it's ridiculous. I never in a million years thinking that I would actually get involved in law. It was just like a thing. Like, I was just like, you're not listening to me. Like, the law is stupid. That, like, I literally said,
and you changed the law. Okay. And that's why you're here today. You changed the law.
I need to make that text message a t-shirt one day that said, the law is stupid and I will change your stupid law, because I was so frustrated saying, like, he's like, it's the law. I said, just because the law doesn't mean it's right. Like, let's go back and look at all the laws in this country that were like completely awful. Like, I don't know, segregation and like, everything, what they're doing to women. Like, I mean, just because they're laws don't make them right. And if they're not working and they're getting kids killed, then maybe you need to tweak them. Like every other establishment and facility and professionals and corporations do when something killed. Like if my Tesla killed, what are we up to, 1,000 people? I think they might say, hey, let's take a look at why they're being killed. And we can say it's science. Like you can track it. Like it's evidence-based. Like, but nobody wants to believe it. It's like, and then they throw in all the other crap and it just gets so ridiculous. And it's like, no, I said something's wrong. And I said, I owe it to my daughter, whatever it takes. And I said, in the beginning, I said, if I can help one person, then it was worth it. And then one person was not good enough for me anymore. And I went to 2, and then it went exponentially started thinking. I would start hearing that people were saying that this and this and this has helped her. And I said, good. And
here you are. I mean,
is there ever a number that will be good enough to me? I don't know. And I don't care. I'll let you know if I reach me. I don't count them, but I know that it is working, and people and kids' lives have been saved. I've been hurt. But there's still so much to do, and it's overwhelming, and it's exhausting, and it's hard, and it's hard to hear the backlash on how Kayden's law is gonna kill children. I'm like, name one. I'm still to this day waiting for Kayden's law that everybody of these little alienation people claim have harmed children and will take fathers away and this and all that. I said, let me know when Kayden's law harms a child. I'm sitting here, I'm not holding my breath, but you let me know. And it's been a couple years, and I have still yet not heard that any Kayden's law has ever hurt anyone. So. anyone hears of that, please let me know.
Thank you. I'm going to stop it right there. That is a beautiful note to end on. That wraps another episode of Tell Me How You're Mighty. You want to leave us a mighty story or a fuckwit of the week submission? Check out our new website, tellmehowyourmighty.com. That's yours spelt Y-O-U-R-E. We've got all the episodes, show notes, links to our guests, and you can see the tea room where Sarah and I first met. If you enjoyed this episode, please review the podcast and follow us. Thanks. See you next week.